So my name is John Foreman. I'm the planning manager for the city of San Marcos in Texas, and so I'll just jump in and go. So why am I here? We don't have zombie subdivisions, so I just want to explain briefly what my thought is when I put this together was we don't, but we will, because we're booming now. We're the nation's fastest growing city for 2 years in a row, and just because we're booming now doesn't mean that this kind of thing can't happen. It actually means that it probably will. So we need to be ready and have a plan to deal with this. So a little bit about San Marcos. We're about 50,000 people. We're a university town with a major growing university of Texas State. We've got one of the most beautiful rivers in the country, the state, the world. The San Marcos River pops out of the ground. It's a spring-fed river that flows right through our town, right in the middle of our downtown, right by our university. It's all lumped together in the middle of town, and it's a gorgeous town. But we are the fastest growing city in the country. We've grown, this year was 8%, last year was 5%. We'll probably hit 6 or 7 next year. It's continuing to happen. And they don't all look like this, but to some of the residents, this is how they feel. Because they're mostly student growth. It's the university that's growing that's triggering this for the most part. So this is what it looks like. These are large-scale student housing projects. I call them the McDonald's of apartments. And these are getting built everywhere across the country where there's a growing university. It's actually a really big national problem. They look like this. They're cheap. They figure out what your lowest common denominator of your zoning code is for multifamily, and they built that. We've had a couple of these that were built, and they're large. They're 20 acres or more. The more the better, and the cheaper the better. And again, this is a big problem for university towns. But it's not the only growth in our region. Hays County, which is where we are, is in the middle there. It's right between Austin and San Antonio. It's a growing region. This is Kyle, the pictures of the subdivisions. These are what single-family subdivisions can look like in our area as well. We don't have a lot of this yet, but we are right between Austin and San Antonio. And just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it won't, and it will. And to me, you put those two things together, and it's a really dangerous combination. We need to get this figured out quick, because we're going to have a big problem once the university stops growing, when online enrollment catches up, when the oil market goes bust. When any of these things happen that affect us, that are triggering our growth, we're going to have a huge problem. So how we started to address it, the first thing we did was our downtown. Our downtown happens to be right by our university, and you all know I'm preaching to the choir on this. It makes sense to put the density where the student density where the university is. Better for transportation, better for the built environment. We've had some success doing that, and I'm not going to go into much of that here, but I think it's important that we started this early. This is the one place where the community wanted density, and we were able to make it happen. The other thing we've done is a thorough, comprehensive planning process. We've worked not just to address these little issues, but we've really looked holistically at the city and figured out where do we want development and what is that development going to look like. And we started with an environmental exercise. We call this the brain map. We figured out at a citywide scale, where do we want to grow? And we worked with the citizens throughout this process. It was a charrette-driven comp plan where we used a chip exercise with Legos to allocate the density throughout the city. And that was our first step. And after that, we drew in, now that we know where it goes, what does it look like at the citywide scale? So by the end of our week-long charrette, we had basically our future land use map for the entire city, which I'm going to cheat and go back to. Because what you'll notice, this is our legal future land use map. So this is the guiding document. This is not just a plan. This is when people come and want to develop, we pull this out and say, are you in one of our intensity zones? And we only have 4 areas. There's not very low density residential or mixed use districts. It's all about intensity zones. We don't say transect, but it's the same kind of concept. And then there's employment areas, and everything else is an area of preservation. Doesn't mean you can't develop there. It just means when you do, it's got to be the same character of what's there now. So conceptually, I can explain it in about 2 minutes, and it's intuitive for citizens, developers, and everyone to understand. Doesn't mean they all like it, but it's easy to understand. So to address the sort of multifamily issues specifically coming out of the comp plan, we've got a Band-Aid, I call it. It's our multifamily design standards. The good thing about them being so spectacularly bad is there was a call for change from the council, and we've been able to go in and not just look at the design, but I think the easy thing would have been to slap some masonry standards on the buildings and stop. But we looked at some more fundamental issues and really set the stage for some other bigger changes that we need to make to our codes coming up. So we were able to look at the block size historically in San Marcos, which is not all that different from most other cities that were built in the 1800s, and apply that to our design standards. So multifamily developments now have to work within the existing block structure, and where they're greenfield, create that block structure again. So that was the Band-Aid. Now it's time for the major operation. We're preparing to do a land development code rewrite for the entire city. And I think that this is going to be really the moment of fundamental change in San Marcos to get us off that track and prevent us from being on that single-family zombie subdivision track that a lot of the cities around us are on. So we're not that different from a lot of cities. We have a unified development code. These were all the rage a few years ago for planners. We're going to put our zoning ordinance and our subdivision ordinance in the same place. I don't know why it was supposed to fix everything, because it's basically taking your terrible zoning, your terrible subdivision, putting it in one binder. We did that. Obviously didn't fix everything. We still got a lot of issues. The only good thing about it is now when we do an LDC rewrite, we don't have to touch them both. We can pull one document and edit it. That's the only good thing I can find that came out of it. So our successes downtown, the reason that it was important for us to get that right earlier is it really has opened the door for us to expand that throughout the city and say, you know, urbanism doesn't have to be scary. Urbanism is something you want, and it's really going to allow us to have these conversations with the neighborhoods. But I think we're also going to have to talk about value. Chuck Marone was in town and showed this sort of map showing the assessed value everywhere in the city, and we have the outlet malls are our economic driver. People were shocked in San Marcos to see, for us, at a per acre level, the outlet malls are nowhere near downtown. And this is only the parcels in downtown that are built out. So there's an economic argument that we need to start making. And I'm going to shift gears here a little bit and talk about the magical mystery tour that we went on this year. If you don't know what that is, at 12:30 there's a pop-up session in the hall. Go and check it out. So we went and toured the Rust Belt. And again, it's kind of hard to think about how much that might relate to a growing city like San Marcos. But we have a lot of the same issues, and if we don't now, we will in the future. One of the most fascinating places we went to was Braddock, a town that lost 90% of its population, basically emptied out, all the plants closed, one factory still open, terrible poverty rate, crime rate, it was awful. How have they turned that around? It's just starting, and they're still on the brink, but what's worked in these towns, from my perspective of 2 days on a bus looking at it, is what's local, what's organic. And I think Braddock Farms is a great metaphor for this, because they produce local organic food, and it really helps to give the region something to come back to. And so everywhere we've seen these resilient places, those are the kind of common themes. It's local, it's small scale, it's organic, and it's all about the people. Urbanism, I think we're going to get right in the code. We have Dover Cole working with us. We've got experience. We're going to make the codes work, but we need to start thinking about these other broader issues, the economic and the social issues, to really make our place unique. And that's our toolkit. That's our thought, is what's going to set us apart, because the CNU's done great work. We're all urbanists. We're all making this happen all across the country.